Hello everyone, how are you all? Today on Scotch Memories we are chatting to Jason Connery. So how are you all? I hope you are all happy and healthy and safe out there wherever you are. Just before we get started, please remember to hit that subscribe button on both YouTube and on podcast, and remember to leave a comment as well. But today I am properly over the moon. Today we are chatting to son of legendary Scottish actor Sean Connery, Jason Connery. Jason is an actor, writer, producer and director, and you'll have recognised him from things like Doctor Who, Robin of Sherwood, Mary-Kate and Ashley in Action, Smallville, Shoebox Zoo, Criminal Minds, and he's directed such features like Pandemic and Tommy's Honour. He is also in the process of setting up the first stage and screen studios in Leith here in Edinburgh. Jason, hello, how are you?
Hello Tony, I'm good, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you so much for joining me here today. It really is an honour.
Oh, well, no, it's lovely to speak to you. I've spoken to a number of the other people that you've interviewed who all speak very highly of you, so it was a no-brainer, really.
You're properly making me blush here now. That's the nicest thing I think anyone's said. So how have you been? Before we get started, how have you been? Are you safe and healthy and everything?
Yeah. So for the last, about 24 years, I've had a cottage down in the Borders. And even though I was living in LA, I wanted to keep that so that I could bring my son over every now and again, and he could see the wonderment that is Scotland. And the Borders, which I love very much. So I was down there with my partner Fiona, and we spent 4 months, and it was interesting. I mean, I have to say feel slightly guilty because we love the cottage. It's slightly in the middle of nowhere. There's a one-track road that leads to the farm at the bottom of the road, and this would have been, I suppose, the manager's lodge or whatever cottage, and life was normal except for when we went into Galashiels and went to the supermarket, where obviously everything was always a bit different with the masks and keeping social distance and everything. But we only went there once a week, so and basically anything in the house that wasn't nailed down was painted. So I did a tremendous amount of gardening and all this kind of stuff, and so. We had a lovely time, I have to say. I mean, horrendous what's going on. And I just hope, I hope that a vaccine is found, or, as Donald Trump said, it will just peter out suddenly for no reason at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a funny time, isn't it? It really, really is. And I have to say, actually, when I was thinking, your film that you directed, Pandemic, is kind of it's became a bit of a thing that everyone's watching right now as well. Everyone's like, oh, "Is this what it's going to be like?"
Yeah. Well, I mean, Pandemic was for a long time I'd wanted to direct, and I was living in the US, and I kept being told, "Well, you're a first-time director," and blah blah blah. So we raised $200,000 and shot it in 12 days.
Wow.
We also shot it, I have to say, in possibly the hottest summer known to mankind in Arizona, and it was literally like stepping into Hades every time you opened the door at 7 o'clock in the morning. So all about a virus that's transmitted from water in the smallest county, Diablo County. Is there a suspicion that the army is involved, and that they were using it to see whether it would be good as a military weapon? And it was all and it was actually based on a newspaper article. So yeah,
it's just funny how these things sort of, especially with all this going on, it's funny how it's just sort of caught on right now. And I mean, it has been watching, but we're kind of sort of straying into more serious subjects here. So growing up, how much time did you get to spend in Scotland?
Well, I tell you, I have to say that one of my first memories, which is a wonderful one, was my dad used to play in these pro celebrity golf matches, and many times it was up in Scotland. It was at Glen Eagles, in fact, almost. I mean, there was Turnberry as well, but mainly in Glen Eagles. And so my memory of Scotland, and I'm sure it's through rose-tinted glasses, because I remember it being sunny every day. So that's not true for sure.
Yeah.
But we had this amazing 10 days where we would stay in the Glen Eagles Hotel and have amazing food and be able to play golf and hang out with a load of different people and play golf with my dad every now and again and with my stepmother and my brother. And it was just wonderful. And that was from the age of about 10 for about 10 years. And in the interim period, of course, at 14, I was at Gordonston up in the far north of Scotland. And then when I left school, I went to drama school to Bristol Old Vic, but then came back to Scotland because at that time, to get your equity card, the only way you could get it is if you acted, but you couldn't act unless you had it, which is very strange. But what we did was we joined Perth Repertory Company. I was acting and also assistant stage managing, and that's where I met Andy Gray, the wonderful actor. And I was there until I was 19, and then went down to London and started acting. But I always, I have friends up in the far north because of being at Gordonston, and I love to go up there. And then I came back to do the Scottish play on film, and I happened to see a photograph of this cottage in an estate agent's as I was driving up George Street, and I jumped out of the car, ran in, got it, drove there, fell in love with it, and made an offer. And so I've had that since 1997. Yeah. So
it's always been a pull, really, for you.
It has. I mean, Edinburgh is just the most, I don't know Glasgow as well as Edinburgh, traveling up to Gordonston, and then we would always come down from Gordonston through Edinburgh, and we come and see the rugby matches. And as I say, I have friends and stuff. So I know Edinburgh quite well, but I've never lived here. So now I am living here, although I have the cottage. I live here too, because as you said in your intro, I'm running this film studio down in Leith. And so I've been discovering Edinburgh during this time, which has been phenomenal. I mean, I love the architecture. I mean, I think some of the Scotsman building, obviously the Balmoral, and there's just, there's obviously some hideous buildings, especially on Princess Street, where you just think, what were they thinking in the 70s, It's just these sort of concrete boxes. But interspersed with that, and obviously the castle, and the castle looks like it sort of grows out of the mountain there. So it really is a spectacular city. And my girlfriend Fiona has found this Mary's Milk Bar, which is possibly the greatest ice cream known to mankind, and she goes there every day, pretending that she's taking a dog for a walk. But we all know.
It's funny, you're not the first person to mention that. As well as doing these interviews, the channel, I do a lot about Edinburgh and Scotland and things like that, and places to eat and all, and history and all these sort of things. And Mary's Milk Bar, I haven't been myself yet, but the amount of people that have suggested to go.
You live in Edinburgh and you haven't been to Mary's Milk Bar.
I know, it's just not nearby. I know, but the amount of people, even my wife has said, you've got to go to Mary's.
I mean, there's pistachio. Is just, I mean, it literally is like eating a pistachio nut, but better. I mean, and then the mixes of the flavors of cheeses in ice cream, which sounds hideous and is fantastic. And the mixes and she makes them all the night before. So it really is wonderful. Yeah.
My head's going, the cheese and ice cream doesn't sound nice. But then at the same time, my head's going, but it's both dairy. So it must work on some level.
Gorgonzola and pear. There's a mix for you. Yeah.
So have you found, are you properly getting a chance to explore Edinburgh then? I know it's been a funny time, really.
Oh, yes. Well, yeah, over the time, we didn't come up to Edinburgh. I mean, I was renting a flat up here, and we weren't here for 4 months. It was really hard. But so that was not so great. But, I've been here about a year and a half now, and working on putting the whole deal together for the studio. And we've walked and walked. We're living around the meadows, so we can walk through the meadows and Brunsfield and all that area, and then go down to Princess Street, obviously across George Street, and then down Dundas. Fiona has a wonderful eye for photography, and she does love taking pictures of animals, but actually she's taken some magnificent photos of the architecture.
Yeah.
As I say, you can just the vistas and some of the streets are just phenomenal. I mean, that whole Circus Lane, which is very small and pretty, but then you suddenly open up into Moray Place and all around there with the cobble streets, and it just is. I mean, anybody coming to visit this place, especially, I lived in America for 24 years, and LA has got some nice buildings. Frank Lloyd Wright and people, design these architects and things. But when you come here, it's just a whole different. I mean, it's nothing obviously over 200 years old in America, really. So certainly in California. So to see the stuff here. You just stop sometimes, and it doesn't matter in the weather too, because even on a dreich day, you still have some fantastic vistas.
We're very lucky, aren't we? It's funny what you're saying about America being, because we've been over to America a couple of times, but it is still quite young. And then when I'm doing here, I've been enjoying doing a series on finding old photos of Edinburgh, say 100, 150 years old, and just finding that spot and comparing.
Yeah.
It might be something being a local, something in my head going, but this is only 150 years ago. It's not that long. Whereas, I forget that for other countries, it's like that's a massive part of their history. Yeah. Whereas us,
also, I tell you the thing that I really noticed that I couldn't understand what it was, and then I realized that when you drive through America or California, in particular, there is writing everywhere. All the buildings have writing on. They have either posters or advertising or neon, and it's everywhere. And some of it is quite beautiful and everything. But it's because of that. There's a noise to it. I can't really explain, but it just feels sort of noisy. It's like, it's in your face. It's all, sell. And then you come to Edinburgh and you suddenly realize that you can walk down a street and there may be the name of a pub or restaurant or something like that, but there's so much less writing everywhere. And you can see the buildings, because to a certain extent in California, a lot of the buildings are just, they're not, there's no architectural element to them at all. They're just there to be, something to be covering you.
Yeah.
And so they just coat them in writing. And so apart from them obviously being beautiful here, you can see them because they're not covered in writing.
Yeah, and it does seem like, and this is actually a nice segue into something I wanted to ask you. It does seem like that filmmakers are starting to discover that a lot more recently. At least,
let's hope so, Tony. Because we need them to come over and shoot all this exteriors, the beautiful vistas of countryside, the amazing cities, and then stay, as opposed to going off to another country to do all their interiors. And so, that's our aim. I mean. When we were doing Tommy's Honour, we shot all around Lothian and East Lothian and Fife, and it was beautiful and wonderful. But, when it came to building anything, we couldn't find a space to build in. And we were a fairly small film. I'm not talking about some of the films that are looking to come into our studio, because the space is absolutely humongous. But we ended up shooting in a cookery school that was on hiatus, or on holiday, and it was just basically a barn. And I remember listening to Danny Boyle talking about how when he shot and I've forgotten the name of the film. Trainspotting. He shot in a barn, and then he came back 28 years later, or however long, 22 years later, and they shot in the same barn because there's nowhere to build.
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping, and I agree with you, people are discovering, and it's also the light. There's a I mean, obviously there's a lot of grey days, but on the good days and also even on the grey days, there's a quality of light which is quite wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I mean, as I was mentioning when I spoke to you yesterday, I was a professional actor for 10, 15 years until I sort of just drifted away from it. But it was always something that when I saw that the studios were getting built down in Leith, I got excited. I got so excited that we were going to have that back in well, not back in Edinburgh, because it's a hole that's been missing from the capital city for a long, long time.
I think so. And this building is, it was originally built to build transformers. And so inside it has a whole infrastructure with these 60-ton cranes that travel along the roof. And because of that, it lends itself so perfectly to have soundproofing hanging off it. And it's 170,000 square feet, and it's 29 meters high in the middle, which is 100 feet. It's quite a wonderful building. I mean, it really is, and it lends itself. That's what's so wonderful. It lends itself to being a big production shoot house, which, if you tried to build that from scratch, would be, at least 50-60 million. Yeah. So, and it's sitting there. But it takes 20 minutes to get to the Balmoral. So instead of, you're shooting in Pinewood, it's 2.5 hours to get into the West End, which is where, often the stars are put up. Or certainly in central London, whereas here you get to the Balmoral or to the Caledonia or whatever in 20 minutes. So,
It's one of these things that I'm always saying on my videos as well, that for a city that's so iconic and as a capital city, we're so small, truthfully.
No, you're right.
Like you said, I mean, the studios are down in Leith, which obviously right by the coast.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like 20 minutes and you're in the centre of town. But you go 20 minutes in any other direction, you're in the countryside.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're along Salamander Road and boom, you're on the A1 and you're out.
Yeah. So it really offers a lot, really. But
that's the other thing about this city that's quite magnificent, is the fact that I can be sitting in the middle of the city and I can look over the rooftops and I can see these undulating hills in the background, and you literally can be in the middle of the city, as you say, and you jump in your car and you run down towards Holyrood, and boom, there you are. You've got this amazing vista of and being able to walk for miles with your dog, and there's lakes and swans, and it's I mean, I really do love this city, I have to say.
Well, I mean, I'm a massive, just by the fact that you probably guess from running this channel, I love Edinburgh, and I love promoting and sharing it with everyone, and having people like yourself to come on and talk about it and share that passion is always lovely. So is it something that, like you said, your son, you like to bring him over? Is he, you're hoping that he grabs onto that passion as well, I can imagine?
Absolutely, and he has. I mean, it's very funny. He picks up so much. He's a real sponge. So he loves the accent. He was born in California, and so he has an American accent, but he loves to do the Scottish accent, and he tries to do different, Glasgow and Borders, and he's acting now. So he's out there doing his thing. I mean, I think it's been quite hard for him because he's right in the middle of Hollywood. And there's been a lot of protesting, and there's been a lot of, the whole Black Lives Matter and all of that, and he's right there. So, and he's taken it very seriously. But when he comes over, he has a ball because it's such a different lifestyle, and he really enjoys himself here. And also, I can't wait to show him more of Edinburgh, because when he came over before, we were often down in the Borders, down around there. It's much more of a country sort of feel, which he loves too, because it's very different from LA. But he loves to come up to the city. So when he comes over next, who knows when that will be? I'm hoping October, but it really depends on how things all pan out. Then he'll get to see much more of the city, because we're here now most of the time. So yeah, I can't wait for that to happen.
Yeah, well, if you're a guy, just give me a call.
I will. The whole thing as well that's very different is that in LA there isn't that sort of a place you can go, like a pub, and he loves going to a pub and having a pint and talking rubbish for a couple of hours with loads of mates. In LA, it's, you have to drive everywhere, which means you can only have one drink. If you take a cab, it's usually like 22 miles, because the city is this sprawling. I mean, it's sort of the opposite of Edinburgh. Instead of it having this center, which is, kind of where the castle is and everything, comes away from that. LA is just this massive sprawling. I mean, you can do 20 miles to go and have dinner, and you're on the freeway, and then you're on another freeway, and and there's little enclaves that are beautiful and nice, but it doesn't have a center like that. And so I think Dash also loves it when, we will go down to the Dome and have, tea down there, or to the Royal Cafe and have a couple of pints or whatever. Anyway, so yeah, that's a whole different cultural thing as well.
I mean, your dad is arguably one of the most famous Edinburgh-born people ever. Did he used to tell you about spots that he used to enjoy going to, or did he take you to places when he visited?
Yeah, I mean, when we first came to Scotland, when I was, I must have been about 8, we drove around, and it's actually gone now, the tenement that he grew up in, but there is a plaque there. In fact, I stood under it the other day and jumped up and down and had my photo taken to send to it. In Fountain Bridge, and he has the original Fountain Bridge sign for that part of the city.
Wow.
Which is quite fun, yeah. And so he showed us all around Edinburgh and we drove in, and then he pointed out where the milk run was that he did, and also where he was French policing at one stage, and outside the banks and everything, cleaning all the. So yeah, he showed us all of that, and we were 8 years old looking at all of this again. It was totally different. We've got the puppy has just woken up and started barking because there's a man probably about 100 foot below us who's got a massive thing, and he's cleaning the windows on the outside of the apartment. So if you hear any scratching sounds, that's what it is.
I'm surprised you've not heard my two already trying to scratch and get in as well.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned the milk round, actually, because it's one of those things that in my head that there's always, I think I've met about 5 people around about Edinburgh that all said, I did the milk round with you.
5. I mean, almost every person I've ever met of my dad's age went to school with him.
Yeah.
And there's so many that on the milk round, and then some lady will come up to me and say, "Oh yeah, I dated your dad back in the day." I was like, okay, yeah. And I have to say, it's very sweet talking to people in Edinburgh that I meet every now and again who tell me little stories about, because back in the day he was known as Big Tam.
Yeah.
And one of the stories that I hear quite often is how they all used to get together and go and watch his films. In the cinema, because of the memory of him playing football outside, outside the tenement and stuff.
That's sweet. That's lovely, though. It's nice to have that as a sort of thing. But it's fun, but it's a completely different thing. But it's the same sort of thing. My dad was in the area that I grew up. He was the local football captain, and it was the same. It was a small area, but everyone kind of knew him. It's funny, when I was growing up, you were all like, "You're Tony's son, aren't you?" Yeah. You used to get it a lot, and even now, I still do. Well, but it's nice, isn't it? It's lovely.
It is. I mean, there are some people who very much don't like the idea of of being known and people knowing your business and all that kind of thing. I have to say that I live in this tiny little, this cottage is as I say, in the middle of nowhere, but there's it's very close to a little village, and there's a couple of towns around it, and I like to go to the butcher, and he knows who I am, and we have a wee chat, and I like to know who my neighbors are and stuff like that. I mean, that's just me, but I guess people have their different ways. my dad has always been a kind of person who has a very fond memories of up until a point. I mean, I think when he to a certain point when he left Edinburgh, and went on his way. I think the memory was great, but he was traveling so much that he didn't come back anything like as much as he'd like to have.
Well, actually, what you said there is kind of probably, my head sort of went, Edinburgh's kind of like a village disguised as a big city.
Yeah.
The people do, since we are, a major city that's so small, there is that sort of thing of everyone kind of, you always know someone that knows someone, really.
Right. Yeah, that's yeah. You often get asked, do you know, because he's a friend of and then finally you make that connection wherever it is.
Yeah, and it does kind of work. It's like I've got a very good friend who you worked with on Shoebox Zoo, Tony Donaldson.
Yes.
He's a very good friend of mine. It was only a little when I was reading up, I went, of course you were in that with him. It's funny, even that. It's these little connections are nice, though.
Well, look, I when I did Shoebox Zoo, I had one scene with Peter Mullen, and I remember thinking, wow, that he's a really great actor. If I get the opportunity, I'd either like to work with him again or I'd like to direct him. And when we started, I think Tommy's Honor was my 6th film directing, maybe my 5th. But anyway, I had the opportunity, and I said, wow, he would be so good as Old Tom. And what was really gorgeous was I called him, because we kept in touch, and he was when I said, look, I've got this script, I'm really hoping to get it made. I think you'd be fantastic as Old Tom. Would you mind reading it? I understand, I'll go through your agent and everything, but I'd just love to know if you'd be interested. He said, yeah, no problem. And so I said, well, I'll send it to you. And he goes, yeah, I won't read it for a day or so because I'm in New Zealand. And I realized I'd called him. It was 4:00 in the morning, and he didn't say anything. He didn't say, for God's sake, man. He just said he just said it and literally 2 days later he called me back. He said, if you want me, I'm in. I love it. And obviously there was negotiation with the agent and all that kind of thing. But and that's the kind of thing that I think is great. It really is. When the world's like that, and you can make the connection and then do the things you're trying to do, and the person embraces that. I love that.
So is golfing a big thing for you as well? Then is it something you really love?
Well, it's interesting. I didn't realize. I didn't think of Tommy's Honor as a golfing movie per se. I thought of it more as a love story between a father and son, and also a husband and wife. But what I realized was that I really connected to it as well, because I grew up on the golf course with my dad, and that's where we had a lot of long conversations about things, because when you're walking up the fairway and you're playing golf and things, you chat, you talk, and there's a lot of things said, and then you go and hit your ball. And so I realized that that's how I look at golf. I look at it that, you might meet someone who's a friend of someone else who's in the 4-ball that you're playing with, and you're walking up the fairway and you have a chat. And I've seen, friendships develop, but I've seen, business things, and it's not, I don't go for a business thing, but, things that just happen and happen organically, and it's through golf. And I understand it's like Marmite. There are people who hate golf and, despise it. And there are people who love it to the point where it's almost anything they can ever think about. I'm sort of in that place where I really enjoy it. I play it, when I can, and I've had some great experiences playing it. So, but I'm not, like avid to the point like some people who are sort of, can't wait for their next game.
Yeah, my dad was a big golfer. Like I said, golf and football was his thing. He was a captain of football, and he did try to get me playing golf when I was young. I was just awful at it. I think I've got a bit more pull to want to try it again now, but it was one of I went the opposite way a little bit. So with football and golf, my dad was like properly like football, golf, and he wasn't he wasn't like driven by it, but he loved to watch it. It was always on TV, one or the other. So I think that pushed me away from it a little bit because it was always there. But like I ended up being the local rugby. He was the football captain. I ended up being the local rugby captain. I was like, I'm going the other way.
Well, I have to say, my dad was a big football guy. I mean, he loved football, and I think somewhere in the grey matter, he tested for like Man United second team or third team or something. Right. And then he started playing in the sort of pro celebrity or celebrity sort of football matches. And I remember him actually telling me that the fastest winger he'd ever seen was Des O'Connor. He said he was the fastest winger I've ever seen, which was quite startling. But he has bad knees, which I seem to have inherited. I just had a partial knee replacement on my left knee, which I have to say I'm so happy with, so excited, because I've had pain for quite a long time, and I've just worked through it, and it's getting better every day, and it's so lovely to walk without pain. But yeah, that whole knee thing really scuppered it for my dad as far as being any kind of sportsman.
My dad, excuse me, sorry, my dad, and this will make you laugh. He got a job in the bank after he left school. He went to Royal High, right. Left school, got a job in the bank, but he was a good football player as well when he was young. And this was at a time where scouts would come to you. You know, they would say, right, we want you to come play for us. And there's a story that he loves to tell a little bit, that the scouts came to his house and my gran answered the door. He wasn't in. My gran answered the door and they went, hello, we are from Hibernian. We'd love your son to come and play for us. And she went, no, he just got a job in the bank. Go away, and shut the door. And that was it.
I mean, you do hear stories of things that just something as small as that, and it changes your whole life path.
Yeah, I mean my dad's 75 now, so football was a very different thing, you know, back then. It wasn't.
You probably didn't get paid much at all, really.
No. Still, it would have sent him on a different path anyway.
No, absolutely. I mean, but he stayed with it anyway. If he was coaching, right?
No. He was captain when he was younger. I think once he got to that age, once he was at the bank, he's still social playing and the smaller clubs. But no, and coaching was never something he did. I wonder why. Actually, that's a different thing.
Yeah, you are.
If you don't mind, I'll ask you top tips for anyone who's thinking about coming to Edinburgh and Scotland.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's a very cosmopolitan city now, even though it may not have, you know, this vast space as we talked about. I mean, ironically, I think the food is amazing here.
It really is.
Yeah, I mean, Britain as a whole has changed so dramatically from the 70s. And even the early 80s, you know, where the food was just awful. I mean, and especially in Scotland, because it was either fried or it was cooked to death. So, you know, it was really not good. And now I really feel as though Scotland, UK as a whole, but also Scotland, particularly Edinburgh, has some fantastic restaurants. I mean, we hadn't been out for 4 months, you know, to dinner, and Fiona and I went out to a restaurant called Howie's. I don't know if you've been there. It's on.
No, Howie's, yeah.
He's got a couple of them actually, but the one we were at the one. God, now again, what's the street? Victoria. Yeah. No, Victoria's the other one. The main one up opposite the. Oh, anyway, I can highly recommend it. And what was wonderful was, you know, you're dealing with the whole COVID protocol, and they made it so simple without in any way not adhering to it, but just, you know, you came in and there was safe distance from you, but you invite, you know, and it just felt like a normal night out. And I have to say, it was so refreshing. Yeah. You know, it was so refreshing to sit there, have really good food and be taken care of and have a nice bottle of wine and relax and talk and actually have people around you, even though they were further away. But I mean, top tips, I would say, you know, there's fantastic food. There's great restaurants. There's great atmospheres in if you like to go out for a pint somewhere. There's a very diverse sort of range of food and of drink wherever you want to go. Just on that front, I think just you can walk, as you said, you can walk anywhere. So you get dropped off in the center of the city and you can walk right the way down Princess Street one way and see everything there, and go through, go up to the castle, go to the Balmoral, see it there and everything. And then you go all the way up. And then now you're about to have a tram that will take you all the way down into Leith, and you can get on a tram and go all the way to the airport. So it's got in a considerably short time, you can really you can take your time, but you can really see everything without having to take cabs everywhere or drive. Other tips: beautiful, literally, as you said, right outside the city. You've got some fantastic. What's the name of the? It's not Arthur's Seat. What's the name of the
Carlton Hill.
Huh?
Carlton Hill?
Yeah, Carlton. Well, there's Carlton Hill, which is always fascinating to me because it looks a bit like you're in sort of Rome or ancient Greece or somewhere with
the National Monument or the Disgrace, as it's sometimes called. Yeah.
But you've also got the museums and the art galleries, and obviously the Fringe. I mean, the Fringe didn't happen this year, and we're in the Meadows, and it was so bizarre because usually during this time even, it would be a madhouse here, and we'd be running off to see shows, and the variety of shows and the people coming from all over the world and all over Europe to put on shows or to come and see shows, and the city I think 1 million people come into the city.
Yeah.
So that's pretty amazing. And the theatre, you've got what you've got in the theatre, which is so nice. Outside of the Fringe you've got the smaller venues, and then you've got the Lion King was here, so you can go and see the fun ones, the big shows, musicals as well. Of course, Andy and Panto.
Yeah.
Andy Graham.
I feel so sorry for them this year because I've spoke to Grant, I've spoke to Alan, I've spoke to Andy, and when I spoke to them all, they were all so hopeful that it was going to happen, and then literally the day after I spoke to Andy, they announced that it was cancelled for this year. My heart breaks for them a little bit because they genuinely love doing it.
Oh, they do, and I mean it's hard work, but they really love it, and the people of Edinburgh love it. They all come to see it. I mean, I think it's one of the most popular pantos in Scotland. It may even be in the whole of the UK. I mean, they really do. I mean, they go on doing it for a long time. The other thing is that you've got in not too far distant away from Edinburgh. Of course, you've got Glasgow, which is a wonderful place to visit. But you can have Edinburgh as a hub. You can go up to, up to St Andrews, and all the way along the coast there, either the east coast or the west coast. You've got Loch Ness. You can go look for the monster, and these are all day trips. You're not spending 6 hours in your car. Obviously, if you go up to the west, the northwest, up there, up into Inverness, Aberdeen, all that. That's a bit of a trek. That's a 5-hour job. But I think that Edinburgh is a great place to have a hub. I mean, the irony is that the Borders is a bit of a sort of brigadoon because everybody thinks England stops in Carlisle and starts in Edinburgh. But actually, there's a whole 80 miles where you've got the Borders, which are absolutely stunning. And
they really are. The Borders are beautiful.
Yeah, and of course they had the woolen mills and all that, and then that fell away. But I love being there because as well, you never stop in traffic. You say the one thing I will say about Edinburgh is the great thing about being able to take your bike and walk is the fact that you don't have to sit in the traffic because it can be a bit ugly here.
Yeah. It's funny when you were chatting there, when you were talking about using Edinburgh as a hub. I just interviewed Colin Mockery from Whose Line Is It Anyway? Because
Yeah.
he was born in Kilmarnock, actually, even though he's Canadian. But actually, a comment under it, because he'd made a lovely comment about Scotland, and someone from over in America had said they're always telling their friends to come over. They said you could probably see Scotland in 2 weeks because it's not big, but it would take a lifetime to discover it.
Right.
Which I thought was a lovely sentence, a lovely phrase, turn of phrase there.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's such depth. I mean, there's so much to see, even though it isn't that big a place. And I mean, the other day we were watching a documentary that I think Ewan McGregor was doing the voiceover for, and wow, it was just stunning. I mean, just the wildlife. And the vistas and the light, you know, I mean, when we were doing Tommy's Honour, Peter Mullen, you know, he'd never shot on that side of the coast, and we were up there, and he was just blown away, and really said he lived in Scotland his whole life, and he discovered a whole side of it that he'd never really, you know, because there is a tendency when you live somewhere to sort of stay in your area, and so he was really excited about discovering more.
Yeah, I think actually Americans are a little bit better at us than that. They like to explore their own country a little bit, whereas we tend to not, and we don't take advantage of the beautiful things we've got here.
No, and I mean, but America is huge,
Yeah.
huge. I mean, you know, I did the drive once from LA to New York, and
wow, there's a drive.
Yeah, that is a really big drive. And the thing is, you go through just these areas that are flat and just, you know, there's nothing going on at all, and then suddenly you hit other states, you know, Montana, and you know, just, and then when you get up into, but even I was in Southern California, but Northern California is so different to Southern California, and it is the most amazing country, America. But I have to say, it's so funny because talking to Americans as well, they're all looking at their history because they want to feel anchored in something that other than America for some reason. They love America, and they, you know, they think of it as their country, but they always want to talk about, you know, they're either Scottish or Irish or Polish, or, you know, and I mean, I remember in my neighborhood they used to show Braveheart about once every, you know, 3 months, and have a big Braveheart party, and they thought it was almost a documentary that is exactly how it happened, you know, and they were like, oh yeah, well, I was originally from, you know, Glasgow, you know, like, yeah, okay.
I love it because this channel is watched a lot by people with Scottish heritage. Either they're expats who they've moved over when they've young, Canada, America, Australia, and never had the chance to come back, or their ancestry comes. And I love the fact that they hold on to it. I met a lovely, they're gonna be upset because I can't remember where they were from now. But last year, round about this time, I got contacted by an American pipe band who had come over here to play in a pipe band championship. They invited me to come see them, and I went and met them, and they were telling me, like, there's Highland games that they have over there.
I went to a Highland game in Canada. Canada's huge for Highland dancing and playing the bagpipes, and you know, they have these massive, and they're all got their clan colors, and they take it really seriously, and they love it. They love, you know, and they feel like it gives them a sense of their past, you know, their history.
In some ways, they hold on to it a little bit tighter than we do, being here.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just before I let you go, I've got some difficult questions for you. Right, this is where we separate the men from the boys.
Right.
Shortbread or tablet?
Shortbread.
Yeah, not a tablet fan. Too sweet.
I love it for the first, and then I always overdo it, and then I think, oh God, why did I do that? You know. So shortbread, I can have a cup of tea, bit of shortbread. Yeah.
It's funny, but since I've started doing the difficult questions are always my fun. This is what I enjoy the most. But tablet's not as well known in other parts of the world.
Oh, really?
Shortbread, yes. Everyone knows Scottish shortbread, but tablet, I've been getting a lot of comments going, What's tablet?
Tablet.
It's essentially sugar. It's
Yeah, exactly.
just sugar.
Purified sugar.
Yeah. Haggis, neeps and tatties, or mince and tatties?
Oh, haggis.
Yeah. Haggis fan?
I love it. Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's heavy, and we always do ode to the haggis on Robbie Burns night, and yeah, I mean, I just think it's just, I love the pepperiness of it. If you get like the Sweeney's, which is obviously a very well known one, but there's a butcher down in Selkirk near me, and also one in Hoyt, and they do a fantastic, and it's got this peppery taste. It's so rich. It goes great with tatty and neeps. So yeah, gotta be.
There's a beautiful butcher on Portobello High Street. If you get a chance, they do.
Oh, really?
Haggis in there as well.
I'll do that, because we like to go to Portobello.
I used to host a Scottish show in the Jam House just on Queen Street, and we used to get a lot of Scottish American. Scottish Canadians, Scottish Australians coming over, and it was the first taste of a thing there. But we always used to give them haggis as the starter, just in case they didn't like it, so they could still get a main course, and they weren't really missing out on anything. But if they were brave enough,
Howie's does a haggis starter, which is really good, and I think it's probably about the right amount. You start getting really stuck into haggis, and it's heavy.
Yeah, when I was talking to Gareth Morrison, who did Tommy's Honours with you, he does Rabbie Burns. He plays Rabbie Burns a lot round about Burns time and things. He goes and does Burns nights and poems and things like that. And when he's dressed in the outfit, he looks, very much like him. And he was just saying that he can't get enough. He did a Rabbie Burns night, and there was a full haggis that he had to do the address to. And then they did it, and they said, "What are you going to do with the rest of that?" And he goes, "Oh, we're probably just going to give it to the dogs." And he went, "No, I'll take that." And he took the whole thing home.
Yeah, well, he's a young man. I tell you, eat too much haggis for too long, you end up getting pretty portly. That's for sure.
A little bit. Iron brew or whiskey?
Oh, you know what? Iron brew is one of those things I'm not that keen on. I got to say, I'll go for a Jura whiskey. I do like a smoky whiskey. Iron brew is never really been my thing.
It is a unique taste. It is.
Totally.
I've said this to a few people when I've been interviewing them. It's one of these things that you can't describe the taste of it. It doesn't taste like anything else.
No, it certainly doesn't taste natural either.
No problem. However, a nice smoky whiskey, though, I've only just recently started discovering whiskey, and I think smoky's the way I like to go as well. It's a taste that stays with you a little bit.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Now this is, since you're sort of becoming a bit more of a local now as well. Chippy sauce, yes or no?
Every now and again.
Yeah, not too vinegary.
Yeah, and there's one. What was the one you went to? Fiona went to one, and she had curry sauce on her.
I like a bit curry sauce. That's more of a northern England thing about curry sauce, but I like a bit curry sauce.
Yeah. I didn't think I would, but actually, it's pretty tasty.
Yeah, it's lovely. And last but by no means least, Tunnock's tea cakes or caramel wafers.
Oh God, I love caramel wafers. I love caramel wafers. I got to say, I discovered those when I was at Perth Rep. Andy's mum, Andy Gray's mum, used to have them in a little jar. And at a certain point, I was renting a room in their house, and I used to sneak in. Don't tell Andy this. I used to sneak in and steal one every now and again, because my God, they were so good. I mean, just the chewiness. How can you not love that? It's got to be.
Yeah. My wife, as I said to you yesterday, my wife's 7.5 months pregnant right now, and we've got a jar that's full of caramel wafers, because every now and again she's just needing that proper sugary hit. Yeah, and the way when you bite through, it sort of gives, and then you chew. Oh, so good. It's like the same sort of thing as biting on a Toblerone. You just eventually break through. It's just lovely. Yeah, so good. Jason, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your time and talking.
Not at all, Tony. Not at all. It's a pleasure to talk about a place I love so, and it's lovely to meet you. So thank you very much.
And I just have to say as well, good luck with the studio. I'm like I said to you, I'm over the moon and so excited that it's been set up here. So I'll be watching closely.
Well, you should come down and have a look at it at some stage, and then maybe we'll do a little talk about what it is, and hopefully I'll be able to tell you about some of the things that might be happening with it.
That would be unbelievable. I will hold you to that.
All right.
Jason, thank you. Keep yourself safe. Thank you.
Thank you. You too. Thanks very much.
That was brilliant. So good chatting to Jason. I honestly could have chatted to him all day long. So kind of him to spare some of his time and chat away with me and reminisce for a little while. Thank you so much, Jason. So kind of you. I am going to hold him, hopefully, so that I can go down and have a look at the studios in Leith in a little while. I would love to see them. Honestly, I would love to have a look around there. But wherever you are, if you have enjoyed that, please remember to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment, and as always, keep yourself safe out there. Until next time, bye humans.